my name is Liberation from 2.4 BSB FM. For today's video ay andito ako sa Intramuros para ipakita yung mga historical sites. So, simulan na natin. Ang Memorare Manila 1945 ay nakadedicate ito sa mga taong inosenteng biktima ng panahong giyera sa ating bansa. Ito ay tinatawag na gravestone para sa bawat 100 kataong libo ang namatay dito nung nangyari ang World War II noong February 3 to March 3, 1945. Kita nyo sa aking likod, ito yung gravestone yard. Gravestone yard noong panahon ng mga biktima. So, ayan. Nakikita na napapansin nyo, i-dedicate ito ng ating bansa para sa biktima ng World War II. Lalakbayin natin yung Memorare Manila 1945. Kung nakita nyo sa aking likod, ay andyan yung mga information about World War II. So, nakalagay nga dito, Remembering World War II, a narrative and pictorial exhibit of World War II. So, ayan, nakikita nyo naman. Liberation and yung mga nangyari ng panahon na to. And ayan, kung nakikita nyo sa aking likod, andyan yung mga nabiktima din. As you can see. And ayan. At meron pa din sa kabila. Wait lang, ipapakita ko. Sausin na natin dito. So, ayan. Napapansin nyo ang aking likod. At babasahin ko din yung mga iilan dito na mga information about sa Memorare Manila 1945. So, dadalan lang tayo. So, sa aking mga napapansin ay talagang napaka bigat pala talaga ng mga nangyari noong panahong 1945. So, halina't aralin natin kung ano ang kukuha natin informasyon dito at kung ano ang mga aral natin na makukuha na. Memorare Manila 1945. This monument is erected in memory of the more than 100,000 defenseless civilians who were killed during the battle for the Liberation of Manila between February 3 and March 3, 1945. They were family victims of heinous acts perpetrated by the Japanese Imperial Forces and the casualties of the heavy artillery barrage by the American forces. The battle for Manila at the end of the World War II was one of the most brutal episodes in the history of Asia and the Pacific, and the non-combatant victims of the tragic battle will remain forever in the hearts and minds of the Filipino people. And this is the NHCP Mart of Memorare Manila 1945. So, yun guys, kung napapasin sa akin ito, maraming din talagang mga tao din dito na pupunta, mga foreigner, ayan, mga Pilipino at ibang tao na nandito para basahin at tignan kung ano ang meron dito sa Memorare Manila 1945. Kasi kung makikita mo naman talaga is napaka-historical site dito at napakalubhang damdamin na mararamdaman mo bawat pagbasa mo sa mga information na nakatala dito sa yan. Kung nakikita nyo yan, as in nakikita nyo yung may information na pwedeng ma-figure out natin kung ano talaga ang nangyayari sa World War II. Tingnan na natin ang pagbasa dito. Ano nakalagay? With war clouds looming, President Roosevelt created the United States Army Forces in the Far East. Is yung sinasabing USAFFE on July 27, 1941. General MacArthur was recalled to active duty to head this new force, made up of the Philippine Army Reserve units and U.S. Army units in the Philippines. Soon after, tanks, bombers, ammunition, and important supplies began arriving. Professional officers and military men were sent to retrain and refresh the Philippine Army by MacArthur timeable. The USAP will be combat ready by the March 1942. So kung nakikita niya dito, ito yung mga tao, military, ng men of all over the country enlist in the Philippine Army. And ito din yung ROTC cadets parade during 6th anniversary of Commonwealth, November 1941. So, ito rin yung induction of Philippine Army Corps into the USAP at Camp Murphy, August 1941. So, kung napapansin nyo sa unang sentence na ito, ay sabi is tayo daw ay ready na daw. Dahil parang meron na tayong forces, is yung tinatawag na USAP, na ayun na active duty na new force made up na Philippine Reserve Units. So, ayun naka-retrain. And dito naman tayo sa second stanza. Meanwhile, while Japanese diplomats were trying to negotiate with the US, the Japanese military planners saw things differently to their military minds. The only solution was to seize resource-rich areas in Southeast Asia to fuel their economy. The Dutch East Indies had oil, Malaya had rubber, and the Philippines had valuable minerals. By September 1941, Japan had decided to go to war should negotiations fail. Having been at war since the early 1930s, the Japanese military was well prepared and well equipped, about 1 million strong. So kung yung napapansin nyo dito, is nandito yung bansa nating Pilipinas na sinasabi na meron tayong resource-rich areas, kundi yung valuable minerals na meron sa ating bansa. So, yung mga Japanese is talang dedicated silang mag-go to war dito. Is well prepared sila. Lahat ng plano nila is as well as they planned. Hindi lang na worth yung plan nila is yung nakapag-negotiate sa US dahil magka-different sila ng military minds. Kaya, ayun, ay nang naging plano nila is yung was to seize resource-rich areas in Southeast Asia. So, which is, napili tayo sa iisa doon. At kaya nangyari yung Memorare Manila 1945 kung paano dalubhasang maraming taong biktima ang nadulot nito. Upon reading this, despite the acknowledgement of Radio Tokyo of the Open City Declaration, the Japanese ignored it and continued pounding Manila. The main strikes were directed against Manila Bay, the port area, and the ancient walled city of Intramuros, resulting in tragic loss of lives and the destruction of centuries-old churches, schools, buildings, and homes. It was the saddest Christmas in the history of the nation. So, kung napapansin niyo sa first stanza na nakalagay dito, is napakadalubhasa ang nangyari nung panahon nung war na ito, na ang daming na-damage, and ang pinakasad ng part pa is ang daming i-construct ulit dahil sa daming ang nasira na mga churches, schools, and buildings at mga bahay. At isa pang pinakasad this event is yung mismong Pasko pa. Magpapasko pa. Ay, kung kailan magpapasko, ay dun pa nangyari yung mga gantong kapanahunan nung panahong nagkaroon ng war. So, ayan, kung makikita nyo ng mga tao, i-picture, at ayan yung mga site Intramuros bombed by the Japanese on December 20, 1941 despite the Open City Declaration. Grabe, no? So kung nakikita nyo yung itsura is talagang wasak na wasak, para talaga tayong minasakar talaga ng todo. So habang binabasa ko itong sentence na ito, ang napansin ko lang is yung the 41st Division led by General Vicente Lim earned the title rank of Bataan for its aggressive defense of the line. After 3 weeks of intense fighting, the Japanese penetrated a gap in the line and outflanked the Filipino troops. A second line of defense was established, the Orenbagak line. Frontal attacks by the Japanese were futile. So Homa ordered small detachments to land their boats behind the lines, but they were detected and wiped out by the USAFFE troops in a series of battles which became known as the Battle Points. So, kung parang naiintindihan ko dito is yung frontal attack of the Japanese were futile, sobrang lubha. They were detected by the USAF and they were wiped out by the USAFFE, which is yung nabasa ko kanina, yung troops ng army na ginawa dito sa Philippines. So kung anong nakita nyong picture dyan, Philippine Scout will capture Japanese equipment after annihilated the enemy in battle points in Western Bataan, February 1942. So ayan. Capture Japanese equipment. Then yun dito is nakalagay ay Japanese troops and supplies enter Bataan on January 7, 1942. So ayan. And US 31st Infantry Regiment anti-tank gun team in the defense of Bataan. So, nakikita nyo, no? Talagang kailangan nilang nagka-camouflage sa mga damo, halaman, para talagang makatago lang sa mga enemy at nang makalaban nila ito ng malayuan, nang hindi sila makikita. So ito naman, improvised medical bus aid station in Bataan. Man ay tank obstacle and roadblocks are prepared by USA FFE engineers in the defense of Bataan. So ayan, kita nyo. Sa kabilang side naman ay Army Field Kitchen at Bataan. So kung ito nakikita nyo is ito yung mga hinahandang pagkain para sa mga armies ng Philippines. Siyempre naman talaga, hindi mo talaga may iwasan talaga na magutom sa panahon na yan. Kaya talagang, tignan mo, porsigido sila talagang nagtatrabaho ng maigi para lang matugunan ang mga pangangailangan ng pagkain ng ating mga nagde-defense sa ating Philippines, especially yung mga armies na lumalaban doon sa Japanese. So kung dito naman may kita nyo is under the watchful eye of the Japanese Lieutenant General Jonathan M. Wainwright broadcast to the US FIP to surrender. So ayan, yung mga tao ng panahon ng Bataan surrenders April 9, 1942. 27 days after the fall of Bataan, the island fortress of Corregidor surrenders to Japan on May 6, 1942. So ayan sila. So sa ayan, na nakikita niyo itong mga taong ito is ayan yung victorious Japanese their traditional base post at Battery Hearn Corregidor. Ayan, so kita mo kung tuwa sila no? At pero deep inside talaga is masakit sa Pilipino na magkaroon ng gantong pangyayari sa ating bansa. Na which is parang tayo'y talagang lubhang nakaramdam talaga ng lungkot sa ganitong pangyayari nung panahon na tayo. So basahin natin to. Fear and intimidation were used to control the people. Drastic measures were put in place. Death was the punishment for violation of Japanese orders and laws. Death also came to anyone who injured a Japanese soldier if the assailant could not be found. 10 people would have to suffer for it. Beatings and other forms of corporal punishment were meted out for the minor offenses, and the guards slapped Filipinos who did not bow low enough to them. So ayan, kung napapansin nyo to, severe punishment were meted out for minor offenses. So ayan yung sample. Grabe, no? Parang pag nakikita mo, parang talagang tinuring para silang ginawang hayop dito. Like as you can see naman, parang inhumanity talaga. As inhuman yung pang ginagagawa ng mga Japanese dito sa punishments. Ayan, napakalubang sakit. Nung nabasa ko ito is talagang, grabe talaga. Yung panahon na ito ay nakakatindi balahibo kung ikaw ay nabubuhay sa panahon nito. Kasi kung nabubuhay ka sa panahon nito, tingnan mo, basahin natin ulit yung second stanza. Life was controlled by the Japanese. The Philippine and American flags were lowered and instead the Japanese flag was raised. Media was censored and registers configured to receive broadcast only from Japanese-controlled stations. Typewriters and mimeographing machines had to be registered. And personal letters were censored. Guns, weapons, and even knives were ordered to be surrendered. Houses and buildings, vehicles, and bicycles were commanded by the Japanese army, where food and other commodities, Americans, British, Dutch, French, and allied nationals were interned. So yan, nakikita mo yan, severe shortage of transportation during the occupation reflected by this overcrowded train interlock, and Japanese propaganda posters are posted in town squares for all to see. So kung as you can see, is pag nababasa nyo to, is talagang mapapaisip ka, parang talagang napakahirap mamuhay sa panahong ito. Like, lahat is kontrolado ng Japanese. Instead of us, countries, na tayo'y namumuhay tayo ng napakadalubhasang paghihirap dahil sa karanasan na ibinigay sa atin ng mga Hapon. As you can see naman, sino ba din ba ang gugustuhin na ang ating bansa ay nagdalubhasang nakaranas ng ganyan, di ba? Parang ikaw na pag namumuhay ka sa panahon na yan, ay grabe ba talaga kay hirap. Ay, hindi ko na alam parang anong gagawin ko. Panic na lang ba ako every time na may marinig akong gera? Like, super duper brutal ang nangyari nung panahon ng mga Hapones na tayo sinakop. And read this, babasahin natin to. As towns were being liberated by American forces and Filipino guerrillas, the Japanese escalated their atrocities and the massacres. Massacres were carried out in many parts of the country. People were tied to their houses and burned meals were tied to each other and beheaded or bayoneted. Women were raped and children eviscerated. The Japanese vented their anger on every Filipino that they saw. Guerrillas fought back and exacted their revenge on the captured Japanese. So brutal that the Japanese preferred to surrender to the Americans. So ito na yung pinaka main part ng event ng Memorare Manila 1945, ang gravestone yard na kung saan nagdalubhasang merong 100,000 na walan ng buhay dahil sa kalupitan na ginawa ng Hapones. So ito nakalagay, the dead were all over the streets of Manila. Grabe. So kinsilit na babasa mo pa lang. Sobrang talagang may kita mo. Pag nakita mo yung mga picture, ay grabe talaga. Napakasakit sa mata ng bawat Pilipino. And February 4, 1945, the Japanese started incinerating homes and buildings. People flee in panic, carrying whatever possessions they could. A woman victim of Japanese atrocities writes in pain has shocks. American GIs look on. The Battle of Manila was fought street by street, building by building, making it the bloodiest urban battle in the Pacific. Grabe. So, yun lang, nakikita nyo. Grabe ang nangyari nung kapanahunan nung mga Japanese. So, ayun, dito na nga tayo malapit magtapos sa aking vlog sa ngayong araw. Sa wakas! So, magbibigay lang ako ng mga final thoughts ko. Habang pinag-aaralan ko yung lugar na to na Memorare, Manila, 1945. So, habang pinagbubulay-bulayan ko basahin yung mga nakalathala dito na share ko sa inyo kanina, ay talaga nga namang bilang isang Pilipino talaga ay nakakaramdam ka din talaga ng lungkot at lubhang pagkatakot dun sa pangyayari na yun. Kasi kung iisipin mo kung andun ka, ano ang dapat mong gawin? Kailangan well prepared ka emotionally, physically, is dapat stable ka. Kasi kung hindi ka stable, talagang whole scenario ng war ay para kang malumanay tignan. Kaya bilang isang Pilipino, mahalin natin yung ating sariling bansa. At syempre, kailangan talaga natin ng maraming preparasyon at dedikasyon sa ating bansa kung paano natin well prepared ang ating sarili sa mga gantong sakuna upang matugunan din natin ang lahat ng ating pangangailangan. At isa ding maganda is yung sa panahon ngayon, dapat tayo ay nagkakaroon na talaga ng peace. Talagang isipin natin talaga yung mas nakakabuti na sa bansa, kung ano makakulad sa ating bansa. Hindi na yung parang immature tayo na mag-isip na sa mga bagay na ganito. Ay, makalumang panahon na yan pag sabihin mong gano'n na. Dapat nasa 2023 na tayo ngayon, present time na. Dapat ang isip natin is talagang mature way kung ano yung mas nakakabuti na gawin, ay nang gawin natin. Kasi syempre mas napapansin ko pag ginawa mo syempre yung mas mabuti at nakakabuti talaga sa ating bansa. Isa yun talaga yung pinakamagandang gawin sa lahat, di ba? Na magkaroon ng peace of mind ang bawat bansa. So, sa Pilipinas natin na bansa is, nung napag-aralan ko ito talaga is, halo-halong emotion ang mararamdaman mo. Syempre dahil na din sa mga pinagdaanan natin ng Pinoy noong World War II. Kaya sinasabi dun sa ating code na never forget. Ba talaga naman talagang pag naisip mo ulit yung mga karanasan na yun, ay talaga bang ang iyong puso ay malulumanay talaga sa lubhang pagka emosyonal natin sa mga ganyang bagay. Kasi sobrang sakit din talaga magkaroon ng karanasan na ganyan, na magkaroon na mawalan ng pamilya at mga kababayan, di ba? As in, sobrang sakit din para din sa ating bansa na mangyari yung trahedya na yun na hindi natin inaasahan. So, ayun, dito ka na tinatapos ang aking vlog at naway may mapulot kayong lessons about dito na patuloy tayong maging pag-asa ng bayan mga kabataan. Kaya padayon sa ating lahat ng kabataan, mag-aral lang ng mabuti para sa kinabukasan. At salamat sa inyong pakikinood. Ako nga po muli si Carla B. Reyes from 2.4 BSBA FM. At dito ko na ay tinatapos ang aking vlog sa araw na ito. Thank you for watching. Bye!